So fellas, with the controversy of a bunch of recent contenders calling for title shots that they haven't deserved, and then just being a logjam in a lot of different divisions in the UFC with contenders that nobody knows who's going to be fighting for the belt next, and there's just a bit of a mess in a couple of the title pictures. So I thought I'd matchmake the title picture in every UFC weight class. So the title fights, the title eliminators, the number one contender fights, fights that should be made, and I think what would be the best fights to make in each weight class around the title picture. Starting off with featherweight, we've just had UFC 314. Featherweight God was on the line. We had a bunch of featherweight contenders competing. And for Alexander Volkanovski, his first title defense on this new run should be Movs or Evloev. And this shouldn't really be debated or discussed. Evloev's really the only contender. Volkanovski's even vocally said that he wants Evloev. He's happy to defend against Evloev in the summer. He wants to be active. And he doesn't have to worry about getting chinned by Movs or Evloev. Evloev's definitely earned his title shot. You can call him boring. You can call him what a decision machine. But 4 ranked wins, beat a former champion in Aljamain Sterling, beat Diego Lopez, Dan Ige, Arnold Allen. He's had some good wins in the featherweight division. He's not even debatable. There's not even another contender they can really argue against when it comes to Movs or Evloev. So Volkanovski versus Evloev next. I understand Evloev might not be the biggest pay-per-view draw. He might not be the most entertaining fighter, but he does present a new style to Alexander Volkanovski. I know Volkanovski obviously grappled with Makhachev at 155, but in the featherweight division, Volkanovski hasn't really fought too much grapplers recently, so Evloev's kind of like a new style for him. So Evloev for the featherweight belt, because there's no one else that you can even, argue that deserves a title shot over Evloev right now. And then for Diego Lopez, who just lost the title fight against Alexander Volkanovski, but went 5 rounds, put up a decent fight. I think the next fight for him, and it's the only fight that really makes sense, is Yair Rodriguez. This is the only fight that you can make for the two of them. They basically made the fight at UFC 314 in the press conference where they stole the show. They went at each other, and they've built the fight. This is the perfect fight to make at UFC 320. Yair Rodriguez dismissing this fight and saying he wants to fight Volkanovski next. You've been smashed to pieces by Volk before. You've been submitted by Brian Ortega. You beat a debutant in the UFC, and you're now on a 1-fight winning streak. I'd argue even if he gets a win, he's still not necessarily earned his title shot, but I think for Yair Rodriguez, him and Diego Lopez at 320 makes no more sense. They both get to fight in Mexico. They've got a big fight that they're building. It would be a huge pay-per-view fight as well, especially in Mexico. And if Yair Rodriguez can beat Diego Lopez, he can maybe make a case to say that he deserves the title shot. And for Diego Lopez, he gets to beat a guy and fight a guy that he's got beef with in Mexico, get back in the winning column. It's the perfect fight to make. I don't need to say the fight. They'll sell it themselves, and they already have. Diego Lopez, Yair Rodriguez, next fight for both of them. And then for Gene Silva, who is a big prospect, big name, up and coming in the featherweight division, one of the biggest names in the rankings, despite only just making it in. Obviously, this fighting nerds prospect. I think for Gene Silva, a good fight to get him in the top 10 and closer to contendership would be Arnold Allen. Now, I don't know when Allen's going to be able to fight, because I know he's got a shoulder injury that he's been dealing with, but hopefully by the summer, Allen's going to be ready to fight. I think him and Gene Silva would be an absolute banger. Gene Silva, I think he's only about 2 fights away from potentially getting a title fight. Somebody in the top 10, somebody in the top 5, and then he's done it. And I think Arnold Allen is the perfect guy in the top 10. He's obviously fought some of the top contenders. He made it competitive with Max Holloway, put up a decent fight with Max Holloway, and a really competitive fight with Movs or Evloev. Coming off a win over, what's his name, Giga Chikadze as well. Looking to come back to the UFC, and if Arnold Allen can be the guy to stop Gene Silva, I think that'd be wholesome as fuck, because Allen's one of my favorite personalities in the UFC. Such a likable dude, fun fighting style as well. They've both got a heavy striking style. I think it'd be a banger on the feet, just coming to brawl. Arnold Allen, Gene Silva, and again, the winner of this fight can potentially put into a number 1 contender fight. I think if Arnold Allen can stop Gene Silva, give him somebody in the top 5, and for Gene Silva, if he can beat Arnold Allen, that's a massive win. That's a great win, and if he can even finish Arnold Allen, that's even better for Gene Silva. Gene Silva, Arnold Allen. And then for Aaron Pico-Gram, coming over to the UFC, he's pretty much been promised a top contender because he was supposed to fight Evloev. Fight fell through, but they've done this whole ceremonial thing with Aaron Pico, so it seems like they're going to be giving him a top fight. And I think Lerone Murphy could be a good debut fight for Aaron Pico. He's obviously going to be signed to the UFC. They did the whole ceremonial press conference, so I almost guarantee he's going to get someone in the top 5, maybe top 10. And Lerone Murphy, who's got 3 ranked wins, just got that Fight Night main event win over Josh Emmett, but a lot of fans aren't really bought on the hype of Lerone Murphy. A lot of people dislike him for his style and the fact that he was a little bit arrogant after beating Josh Emmett in the way that he did. So I think this is a good fight for Aaron Pico. If he can beat Lerone Murphy, it's not like the UFC have lost a valuable prospect in the same way that it's like a Gene Silva was going to lose. And then that puts Aaron Pico in the title picture for a title eliminator. And for Lerone Murphy, if he can beat Aaron Pico, that's 4 ranked wins. You've beaten a big name outside the UFC. And again, for Lerone Murphy, I'd say that he's only a fight away from a title fight if he can beat Aaron Pico. Maybe the winner of this fight takes on the winner of Gene Silva and Arnold Allen. So Aaron Pico's debut fight, if it's not not going to be Evloev. I think undefeated Lerone Murphy with 3 rank wins could be a good kind of replacement fight for him. Again, not a big finisher, just like Evloev. Murphy, Aaron Pico for Aaron Pico's UFC debut. And then the lightweight division, there's a lot of talk about who should be fighting Islam next, with Topuria and a bunch of other contenders. So I think lightweight is what we're going to get onto next. And for Islam Makhachev, just make the damn fight. Islam Makhachev, Ilia Topuria. I don't know why there's so much kind of discussing over this fight and so much kind of just messing about. Make the fight. Makhachev, Topuria. There's seems to be 2 types of fans. You've got half the fans saying that they don't want to see this fight. Ilia needs to, earn it more. He hasn't even got a single win in the rankings of the lightweight division. And then you've got half the other fans saying that they want to see the fight because it'll be a fucking banger. And it's the fight that needs to be made at 155. The 2 best in their respective weight classes. Topuria knocking out Volkanovski, knocking out Holloway, being an undefeated featherweight champion in the fashion that he has been, would be a valuable way to Makhachev. The excuse that Makhachev and his team are bringing is that, Ilia Topuria is another name from 145. It's not a good win. If Makhachev can beat Ilia Topuria, that's a massive name for his resume. And that's bigger than most of the contenders at 155. And obviously for Topuria, he's already said that he wants to fight Makhachev and it's the only guy that he's going to face. It would be a huge fight. One of the biggest fights of 2025. 2 of the biggest stars in the UFC right now. Makhachev, Topuria, International Fight Week, or at least sometime in the summer. It's the fight that needs to be made, and I just want to get it over and done with because it seems like there's so much kind of, discussing over this fight and so much just messing around over it. Just get the fight done. Makhachev, Topuria. And then for a title eliminator, Charles Oliveira. Now, I don't think he should be getting the next title fight. He's coming off a 1-fight winning streak over Michael Chandler, which after him getting destroyed by Paddy Pimblett hasn't really aged that well. Yeah, the 2 guys that have just beat the crap out of Michael Chandler. Paddy Pimblett did it in better fashion than Charles Oliveira. He's called out Charles Oliveira. Well, he's called out every top contender, basically, he's Paddy Pimblett. But I think him and Oliveira would be such a good fight. They've got a very similar style, decent striking. I'd say Oliveira's the better striker and the better grappler, but they've both got a similar style in the sense that they've got like a heavy kickboxing style with a BJJ grappling style that they'd like to implement as well. So, yeah, just 2 heavy grapplers, 2 guys with decent stand-up. Oliveira coming off a win over Michael Chandler. Paddy Pimblett coming off a win over Michael Chandler. Both of them a fight away from a title fight. It makes sense. Oliveira can beat Paddy Pimblett, this big hype train. Then Oliveira give him a title shot. And obviously, Paddy Pimblett, if he can beat a legend in Charles Oliveira, that would be massive for Paddy Pimblett's career. And I would happily see him get a title shot coming into 2026. And imagine if Topuria beats Makhachev and Pimblett beats Oliveira, and you've got Pimblett versus Topuria for the lightweight belt at some point in 2025 or 2026. That'll be a massive pay-per-view. But he's got to get through Charles Oliveira. Oliveira, Pimblett, fan-friendly fight. There's no way you can't be hyped for this fight. And I think it would be the best fight to make next for a title eliminator. And I know that Arman Tsarukyan is also in the wings. I'm not going to forget about Arman. I think out of all the lightweights right now, he probably poses the biggest threat to Makhachev. So I don't just want to kind of keep Arman on the sidelines. I think him versus Gaethje could be a good fight next. And if Arman can beat Gaethje, I know the UFC aren't really fond of giving Arman a title fight next because he pulled out against Makhachev. Dana even said that it might even be next year when he gets a title fight opportunity. And obviously Gaethje's coming after that good win of a Rafael Fiziev, and he doesn't deserve a title shot as well. He's another guy who's been calling for a title shot. You just got knocked out by Max Holloway and you beat Rafael Fiziev 2 rounds to 1. You ain't getting a title fight. Arman versus Gaethje. I know there's going to be a few people out there that don't want to see Gaethje in this matchup because they want to see him on a Legends fight against Dustin Poirier in a trilogy or another legend of the division. If he wants to go for the belt, if he wants to be a champion, you've got to beat the top contenders, and Arman is a top contender. I don't understand this whole Legends pathway to the belt. Dustin Poirier had a pretty easy path to the belt. He had to beat, he got knocked out by Justin Gaethje, beat Benoit Saint-Denis and got a title shot. It's not going to be the same for Justin Gaethje. You've got to earn the title fight. If he can beat Arman Tsarukyan, who's probably the #1 contender right now in the lightweight division, there you've just beat the top contender, get a title shot, whatever. But you can't be getting these free matchups or free title shots. And for Tsarukyan, if he can beat Gaethje, let's be honest, it's an easy win for Tsarukyan to shut the whole Gaethje conversation up, and he's beating another top contender where he would kind of be undeniably next for the belt. So Tsarukyan, Gaethje for kind of like a #1 contender fight, but I would prioritize Oliveira over Pimblett over this fight. And then the next lightweight fight is going to be Dustin Poirier for his retirement fight against Max Holloway. I'm 99% sure this is going to be the next fight. Dustin Poirier has been going around saying that he's got a fight locked and loaded at 155 for his kind of final fight, and I'm 99% sure it's going to be him. And Max Holloway, which I don't have a problem with. I know he's fought twice before, but one of them was at featherweight and one of them was on short notice where Holloway had to quickly bulk up to 155, and he didn't, well, not quickly bulk up, but quickly move up to 155, and obviously it didn't go his way. But I think the last time, obviously, we saw Max Holloway at 155, he had that great performance over Justin Gaethje. Dustin Poirier just had a fight of the year contender over Islam Makhachev. This would be such a good fight for Dustin Poirier's retirement. I think a Paddy Pimblett will be a bit of a disrespect to Poirier for his retirement fight, and any other top contender he probably loses to apart from a Gaethje. So I think Poirier versus Holloway, 5-round main event for the BMF belt or co-main event, whatever. For Justin Poirier's retirement fight, two of some of the best boxers right now, 155. Two guys that are always in fun fights. Two guys that you can guarantee are going to put on a banger. I'm a huge fan of this matchup. Poirier, Holloway, Poirier's retirement fight, and he gets Holloway back in the winning column if he can beat Dustin Poirier, or Dustin Poirier retires off a win after beating a legend. I love this fight, and I'm not mad about it at all. Welterweight, another division where there's kind of like a logjam of contenders at the top. For Belal Muhammad, he's obviously got the fight booked with Jack de la Maddalena. I'm not mad at this title fight. You know, obviously Shavkat was injured at the time of this fight getting booked, so they brought in JDM, who I would say is probably the second most deserving dude of a title fight right now. So JDM and Belal, I'm a fan of this title fight, and I think obviously the winner of this fight, there are big implications for them. Not much to discuss. The fight's been made. For Shavkat Rakhmonov, who is, I would say, the #1 dude in this division, probably the most deserving contender, I want to see him against Muhammad versus Maddalena. There's been this massive talk about this #1 contender fight between Sean Brady and Shavkat. I feel like people are disrespecting Shavkat too much. He's earned his title fight. It was supposed to originally fight Belal at UFC 310. That was supposed to be the title fight. Shavkat versus Belal. Then Belal pulls out. He's the one that pulled out, not Shavkat. Then Shavkat then goes out there and beats Ian Gary. He didn't have to go out there and have another fight, but he did. He beat Ian Gary, undefeated Ian Gary, got the win. And now you said he has to get another win to earn a title fight. I think he's definitely earned it. He earned it at 310, and now I think he should fight the winner. If Belal Muhammad beats JDM, Shavkat versus Belal Muhammad. If Maddalena beats Muhammad, Shavkat versus Maddalena. That's the fight that should be made. I don't want to keep seeing Shavkat face these top contenders before getting a title fight. I know that his fight with Ian Gary might have not been, you know, the classic Shavkat Rakhmonov boogeyman performance, but he went out there and he beat Gary, took the away from him, only ever got to beat Ian Gary. He's got 4 ranked wins. He's the #1 contender. Give him a title fight. He's earned it. And then for another title eliminator. So if we're doing Shavkat, obviously UFC 315 is going to be below JDM. Maybe Shavkat faces the winner later on this year. And in the meantime, we book a title eliminator. It's definitely going to include Sean Brady, who just dominated Leon Edwards. Him versus Joaquin Buckley. I'd say that both of these guys are probably the biggest stylistic threat to Belal Muhammad in the division right now. You've obviously just got Sean Brady, who dominated Leon Edwards in arguably better fashion than Belal Muhammad. You know, he was doing more damage. He got the submission. He finished Leon Edwards. Definitely a fight away from a title fight. And you've got Joaquin Buckley, who's been on a roll, dominated Colby Covington, knocked out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, has a couple of other good wins in the rankings, and again, a guy that I would say is about a fight away from a title fight. I think this is such a banger fight on paper because they're both very high-level wrestlers. I'd say Joaquin Buckley's definitely the better striker, but I'd say Brady's probably the more busy grappler. I think this is a banger of a fight to make. Imagine like a fight night main event in a crowded arena, Brady versus Buckley. Winner gets a title fight in 2026. It's an amazing fight. Both top contenders, both guys who are about a fight away from a title fight. Both guys who you probably wouldn't have bet on to become a champion about a year ago from now. So Brady versus Buckley for the title eliminator of welterweight is the fight that they'll make. And then for Leon Edwards, I'm not going to forget about Leon, even though he's a very forgettable fighter. I think he should take on the winner of Gilbert Burns and Marco Morales. Now, we've obviously got Gilbert Burns and Marco Morales, who have now been scheduled to fight in a fight night main event, I think in May, or later on this year anyway, in the next couple of months. And I think the winner of that fight should take on Leon Edwards. Yeah, Leon needs a big step down. He needs to get away from the title picture. You get dominated by Belal, dominated in even worse fashion by Sean Brady. Leon against anybody in the top 5 right now is a no-go. Ian Gary's booked against Protes, and I think the winner of that fight can fight the loser of Belal and JDM. If Marco Morales beats Gilbert Burns, which he probably will, it's another striker for Leon Edwards to face. He doesn't have to worry about the grappling. He has to worry about striking against an up-and-coming undefeated striking prospect in Marco Morales. It's the perfect fight to get Morales in the top 5 and to potentially get Leon a win over a striker. And if Gilbert Burns beats Morales, it is another grappler for Leon Edwards, but it's Gilbert Burns. He's past his day. And if Gilbert Burns in 2025 beats Leon Edwards, that's when we look at Leon Edwards and say, mate, how did you ever become a champion? So Edwards, give him the winner of Burns and Morales. I think that's the good step. And if it is Morales, Edwards is a big name for him to beat, and then he can get in the title picture. And then for the middleweight division, another division that has quite a few top contenders. Dricus du Plessis, there's only one fight to make, and it's Khamzat Chimaev. Yeah, this is definitely the fight to make. It's one of the biggest fights you can make in 2025. I'm hearing rumors that it's going to be for UFC 317 on International Fight Week, and this is one of the most intriguing fights in the UFC right now. You've got Dricus du Plessis, who just shows up every single time proving people wrong. Undefeated in the UFC, a couple of wins away from being one of the greatest middleweights of all time. And you've got Khamzat Chimaev, who is just running through people. Had a few shaky performances, but just dominated Robert Whittaker, one of the best middleweights in the world. And and did it in super impressive fashion. Dricus versus Chimaev, it's kind of like, what's that phrase when the unstoppable, you know what I'm talking about, unstoppable versus immovable object, unstoppable force versus immovable object. That is this fight. Dricus, Chimaev, one of the biggest fights. Chimaev has earned his title fight. Give him Dricus potentially at UFC 317. And then for a title eliminator, it's got to include Nassourdine Imavov. He's number 1 in the division. Some people would argue that he's actually more deserving than Chimaev, but he's definitely not going to get the next shot. He just knocked out Adesanya. I think him and Caio Borralho is the fight to make. Apparently Imavov has rejected this matchup, but it makes a lot of sense. Nassourdine Imavov, 3-fight winning streak, all wins in impressive fashion, just knocked out Israel Adesanya, the first fight after Adesanya fought for a belt as well. So Imavov's definitely got to have a number 1 contender fight. He's definitely the next up and runner for the title fight in the middleweight division. And Caio Borralho, fighting nerd, huge winning streak in the UFC, just dominated Jared Cannonier, which after Cannonier's performance over Rodriguez has aged quite well. Borralho showed interest in this matchup. He even talked a lot of shit to Imavov on Twitter too, so there's a bit of a selling, maybe a bit of a rivalry going on there. So Imavov versus Borralho, number 1 contender fight, 2 guys again on the rise. I think will be a banger, and again, 2 of the best strikers in this division. You've got Imavov knocking out Adesanya, piecing up and finishing Jared Cannonier, even though it was controversial, whooping Brendan Allen. You've got Caio Borralho, who's just outstriking everybody, again, whooped to Jared Cannonier. These 2 guys to fight. Winner gets a title fight against the winner of Chimaev and Dricus. Perfect contender fight to make. And then for Robert Whittaker, yeah, he's probably got to go away from the title picture for a bit now. Just got, you know, brutally finished by Khamzat Chimaev. Got finished by Dricus 2023 as well. Lost to Adesanya. I think now for Whittaker, you've got to give him a bit of a step down. And I think Fluffy Hernandez is the guy to give Robert Whittaker. Fluffy Hernandez is one of my favourite up-and-comers. But like I said, Robert Whittaker just got brutally finished by Khamzat Chimaev. He's going to need a big step down in competition, a step down in the rankings right now, in my opinion. And Fluffy Hernandez has just been on a rise. I think he's on like an 8-7 fight winning streak. A bunch of stoppages. And then there's another heavy grappler for Robert Whittaker. Another heavy mauling grappler. Just mauled Brendan Allen. Finished Michel Pereira. Finished Roman Kopylov. I don't potentially think he's going to become title worthy. I don't see Anthony Hernandez becoming a top contender. I think his striking lacks a little bit too much. And even though he's a very heavy grappler, I think it's a favourable matchup to get Robert Whittaker back in the winning column over an up-and-coming exciting contender in Hernandez. And if Hernandez can beat Robert Whittaker, that is by far Hernandez's biggest win. And he's now just punched his ticket to being a top contender in the middleweight division, one of the biggest names in this division. So Whittaker Hernandez on some sort of pay-per-view later on this year for Whittaker's comeback fight, I think would be the best case scenario. And for Israel Adesanya, same situation with Whittaker. He needs to get away from a title picture. Got 50-45 by Strickland, submitted by Dricus du Plessis, knocked out by Imavov. He needs to get away from the title picture and fight down the rankings. And I think Roman Dolidze could be a good fight for Israel Adesanya at this moment in time. It's not a super top contender, but it's still somebody in the top 10 of the middleweight division on a bit of a winning streak. But yeah, Adesanya, he's in a rough career spot right now. Getting knocked out by Nassourdine Imavov in the second round in a fight night main event. You've definitely got to go away from a title picture. And Dolidze's has been on a bit of a roll, man. I'm pretty sure he's on a 3-fight winning streak. I know he beat Vettori and Anthony Smith. I forgot who the other guy he beat was, but he's coming off a fight night main event win over Marvin Vettori. So I think we give Dolidze a bit of a step up in competition. Give him Israel Adesanya. I'm 99% sure Adesanya wins this fight. Listen, if Adesanya loses to fucking Roman Dolidze of all people, that's the biggest side to hang the gloves up. But I think Adesanya would beat Dolidze. Could even get a finish as well to get him back in the winning column. And obviously, if Dolidze beats Adesanya, that's another massive name in the middleweight division. Doesn't necessarily grant him a title shot, but definitely puts him in the top 5 and would by far be one of the biggest names he's ever beat. The biggest name he's ever beat. So Adesanya, Dolidze could be the fight next. Even if you do like an Adesanya versus Fluffy Hernandez and Whittaker versus Dolidze, you can mix and match it however you want, but those are the fights I would make for middleweight. And then for the bantamweight division, Merab obviously got his title fight against Sean O'Malley. There's nothing we can do. I kind of appreciate the attitude that Sean O'Malley's given to this fight. He's not kind of saying that he deserves it. He's kind of just accepting he's got a title fight and he's taking advantage of the fact that he's got Dana White privilege. So I kind of respect him for that, but it's not the fight that should be made. Even Dana White at the press conference couldn't even give a good reason to why this was the title fight that was made. But we're seeing it. Merab and O'Malley at UFC 316. I'm still going to tune in. I'm still kind of looking forward to the clash of styles, but at the same time, Sean O'Malley's done absolutely nothing to deserve the title shot. It's kind of put the bantamweight division on a bit of a hold recently, but it is what it is. Merab, O'Malley, we've seen the fight, whatever. Corey Sandhagen, another guy that's booked against Davison Figueiredo, and I think in 2 or 3 weeks' time. I'm a huge fan of this fight. After Sandhagen lost to Umar and Figueiredo lost to Yan, this was the fight that I made, and obviously the UFC have gone through and made it. And I like the fight a lot. You've got Figueiredo, who's a guy in the top 5, one of the most skilled in this division, who's coming off a loss. Sandhagen, same case, a guy who's a top 5 in this division coming off a loss. There's a chance that the winner of this fight gets a title fight. I'm not going to label it a title eliminator because they are coming off losses and whoever wins is only going to be on a 1-fight win streak. But I wouldn't be mad, let's say, if O'Malley beats Merab and Sandhagen beats Figge and they do Sandhagen versus O'Malley. I wouldn't be mad at that at all, but I'm not going to label it as a #1 contender fight, but it's still a top contender fight. Figge, Sandhagen, huge fight for the division, and I'm a massive fan of it. And then a potential another title eliminator could be Peter Yan against Umar Nurmagomedov. Peter Yan, without a doubt, is 1 fight away from a title fight. Umar, maybe they'd give him a title fight if he beats Peter Yan, but again, he'd only be on a 1-fight win streak. But yeah, obviously, Umar's coming off that loss to Merab. Maybe it's super competitive, and if anything, he deserves the shot more than O'Malley does. I understand why they've done O'Malley and not Umar, but he made it competitive with Merab, and obviously, Peter Yan's on a 2-fight win streak. If he can go out there and beat Umar Nurmagomedov, that's a 3-fight win streak since losing to Merab, and he would definitely earn the next title fight. I think I'd actually be quite interested. I know that Peter Yan tends to be tends to struggle with grapplers. He struggled a bit against Song Yudong early on. He got mauled by Merab. Aljamain Sterling gave him a bunch of problems too, but I'd be interested to see how he does against Umar, because it does seem like Peter's kind of improved his grappling in his past couple of fights, especially in that fight with Figge as well. So Yan, Umar Nurmagomedov, 2 top contenders, probably the highest level fight we'd see in the UFC for a long time as well. Some of the highest skilled fighters in the UFC, potentially #1 contender fight, similar to a Sandhagen versus Figge. That's the fight I would make. And then for Song Yudong, coming off that win over Henry Cejudo, a bit controversial, but was outclassing Cejudo. I think we do him versus the loser of Merab and Sean O'Malley. And I'm not saying he should get a title shot if he does beat the loser of Merab and O'Malley. Like, for example, if Sean O'Malley loses to Merab, I don't think Song Yudong should get a title shot if he does beat O'Malley. But I think Song Yudong's earned it, man. He's coming off that win over Henry Cejudo. I know before that he lost to Peter Yan, but that win over Cejudo in a fight night main event has kind of punched his ticket into the top 5. And I think whoever loses in the main event of Merab and O'Malley will have to have a bit of a step down in competition. So Song Yudong, a new guy in the top 5, rather than just the same names over again. Umar, Sandhagen, Figge, Yan, all just getting mixed and matched against each other. Let's chuck Song Yudong in the mix against the loser of Merab and O'Malley. Obviously not saying that should be a title shot worthy win, but it is what it is. Anyway, light heavyweight division. Magomed Ankalaev, there's only one fight to make, and it's the rematch with Alex Pereira. Yeah, this is the fight to make. They had a very close fight. Well, I wouldn't say a very close fight. I think Ankalaev definitely comfortably won the fight, but it wasn't like he absolutely dominated Pereira. Pereira did a good job at stopping every takedown, and because of the body of work that he's put in the light heavyweight division, I think he's definitely earned a title, an immediate rematch. You know, he dominated the division. Ankalaev, by decision, is the only guy that he's lost to. It's the fight to make next in the rematch. I'm actually quite interested to see both their game plans coming into the rematch. Are we going to see a more heavy grappling kind of approach from Ankalaev? Is Alex going to have bigger output on the feet? I think it's going to be very different to the first fight they did have, but regardless, it's the fight to make next. Alex has cleaned out the division apart from Ankalaev. Give him his immediate rematch later on this year. Even Ankalaev's open welcomed this matchup too, so it's the title fight to make at light heavyweight. For Yuri Prohaska, one of the weirdest fighters in the UFC, but one of my favorites. I think him and Carlos Ulberg is the fight to make next. Yuri's just knocked out Jamal Hill, looked really impressive in that fight. I think that was the best we've ever seen Yuri because he had a lot sharper defense as well. Usually he kind of just stood there with his head out in the open, but his defense on the feet seemed to be a lot better, a lot of head movement, and just had a great performance against Jamal Hill. And Carlos Ulberg, he's on a bit of a rise, beating Jan Blachowicz, beating Volkan Oezdemir, beating, what's the other guy, Alonzo Menifield, but it isn't like he's doing it in super impressive fashion. He's going to a very close decision with these guys, so I don't think we can give Ulberg a title fight. So I think a title eliminator, the winner will get a title shot. Yuri, Ulberg. If Yuri beats Ulberg, he's now on a 2-fight winning streak against 2 top contenders, and Yuri can immediately, happily be put straight back into the title picture against either Alex for a 3rd time or Ankalaev. And if Ulberg does beat Yuri, you can't really deny Ulberg anymore. He's beat Yuri, he's beat Jan, he's beat Oezdemir. He's on a huge win streak anyway. That has to be the fight to make. So Yuri versus Ulberg, a title eliminator at light heavyweight, it makes a shit ton of sense. And then 4. The winner of Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree, who have been rescheduled for the 3rd time now. I think they're going to be taking each other on later on this year. I forgot which month. It might be like September. It's later on this year anyway. I think the winner should take on Dominic Reyes. Yeah, I think this should be the fight to make. I've heard a lot of people saying that Dominic Reyes should take on Rakic. I'll get onto that fight in a minute, but that shouldn't be the fight to make. But obviously, Jamal Hill, Khalil Roundtree, taking each other on. Winner of that fight is going to want a big fight, potentially even a #1 contender fight in the light heavyweight division. And Dominic Reyes, he's not back, he's better. 3-fight winning streak, all by knockout, just knocked out Nikita Krylov. He needs a big fight, and he beat John Jones. But yeah, I'm not a fan of this Rakic fight that people keep giving Dominic Reyes. First of all, I don't think it'd be that fun of a matchup. You know, Rakic is a very defensively sound dude. I think he'd probably get a boring decision whenever Dominic Reyes. but he's not high output either as Rakic. And I think Reyes has earned better than Rakic as well. He's on a 3-fight finishing streak. Rakic loses to every top contender. Give Dominic Reyes the winner of Hill and Roundtree. Imagine how fun that would be if Khalil Roundtree beats Jamal Hill and then we see Reyes versus Roundtree for a title eliminator. Or if Jamal Hill could knock out Roundtree and then Hill versus Reyes. Is Reyes going to get chinned? Is he going to chin Hill? Whatever the narrative is going into that matchup. Winner of Hill and Roundtree versus Reyes, I think, will be one of the most fun stylistic matchups in this division, and it has big implications. And then I would do Jan Blachowicz. I kind of feel bad for him. He keeps losing these very close decisions, and he's like 42 years old now. I think the fight to make next for Jan Blachowicz would be the winner of Johnny Walker and Azamat Mirzakhanov now. Yeah, Jan Blachowicz has obviously been losing close decisions on a consistent basis, but whether you want to say it's a robbery or not, he is going to have to fight down the rankings and away from the title picture right now in the light heavyweight division. And obviously we've got Walker versus Mirzakhanov booked for, I forgot which card. I think it might be an Abu Dhabi card in like May or sometime. I forgot which card it's on, but I think the winner of that fight could earn a fight with Jan Blachowicz. If Azamat Mirzakhanov can beat Johnny Walker, that's 2 ranked wins in the light heavyweight division. He's probably going to knock out Johnny Walker if he does beat him as well. And then Jan Blachowicz versus Mirzakhanov would actually be quite an intriguing fight. And if Johnny Walker can beat Mirzakhanov, Walker's back in the winning column. Him versus Jan Blachowicz, 2 guys that are kind of not necessarily, I don't want to say washed. I don't want to say Jan Blachowicz washed necessarily, but definitely not in prime condition. But 2 guys that have been around the light heavyweight division for quite some time would make sense. That's how I do light heavyweight. And then for the flyweight division, there's a lot of contenders at this division. For Alejandro Pantoja, there's like 4 different contenders you could potentially give Pantoja next, but I think the one that is most likely to be next is going to be Kai Kara-France. Obviously, Kai Kara-France just knocked out Steve Erceg and had the best performance against Steve Erceg. You know, Erceg took Moreno and Pantoja to a fairly competitive division. Fucking Kai Kara-France flatlined him in the first, so I don't mind him getting a title fight next. And obviously, yeah, this has been kind of rumored. It's been going around. I think maybe 317. This is the fight to make. So Pantoja, Kai Kara-France. I like this matchup. Obviously, we've seen this fight before in the Ultimate Fighter, but that was an exhibition fight. It was only 2 rounds, I believe. And I think stylistically, Kai Kara-France is a bad matchup for Pantoja. This hard-hitting flyweight with good takedown defense that he trains at City Kickboxing. I think him and Pantoja could be a good title fight. So that would be the title fight I'd make up flyweight. And then for Brandon Moreno. Now, this is the weird part because they can't do Moreno versus Pantoja because I think UFC 320, that means that Pantoja's only going to be ended up fighting once this year because he's not going to fight after 320, is it? Because he's going to take a shit ton of damage against Moreno. And if he does fight at UFC 317, 320 is too big of a turnaround. So we can't do Moreno Pantoja. I think we do Moreno versus Horiguchi. Now, Horiguchi's booked against Tagir Ulanbekov in a UFC fight now, which is horrible matchmaking by the UFC. They should have given Horiguchi somebody in the top 5. Moreno should have been the guy. But assuming that he does get past Ulanbekov, I think him versus Brandon Moreno makes the more sense. Moreno's on a 2-fight winning streak, beat Steve Erceg, beat Amir Albazi, arguably beat Brandon Royval. He's definitely, without a doubt, 1 fight away from a title fight. Maybe even title shot worthy, so if he can beat Horiguchi, he's probably the best flyweight outside of the UFC, I think that would definitely earn Moreno his title fight. And if Horiguchi can beat Moreno, give him a title fight too. So a title eliminator I would make at flyweight is Brandon Moreno against Horiguchi in a fight night main event, or probably on a pay-per-view. Get Moreno on a pay-per-view. He hasn't been on a pay-per-view for a while. So Moreno, Horiguchi, title eliminator. And then for Brandon Royval, we've obviously got him versus Manel Kape. As I don't want to say it's a title eliminator, but it probably should be as well. This is what I mean with flyweight. They've done the matchmaking and timing really badly. So we've got like 3 different top contender fights, and this is one of them. This has been booked for a fight night main event later on this year. I think Royval is the backup for Kai Kara-France and Pantoja with what I've been reading, but this has been booked for a fight night main event later this year, and I'm a massive fan of this fight. In fact, no, I think it's been booked for UFC 317, but either way, I'm a massive fan of this fight. Brandon Royval, the 2-fight winning streak. Manel Kape looked amazing in his last 2 fights. 2 of some of the highest skilled dudes in this division fighting out for a top contender spot. I'm a huge fan of Royval and Manel Kape, so I'm a fan of this fight. And then for Tatsuro Taira, who is definitely one of the biggest kind of prospects in this division, who just obviously took a loss to Brandon Royval. I think his comeback fight should be against Amir Albazi. They're both in a very similar situation. They got a big fight and they fumbled. Tatsuro Taira lost to Brandon Royval, but to be fair to him, it was a fairly close decision, and he put up a good performance against Royval, who's one of the grittiest dudes in this division. And obviously Amir Albazi fought top competition, beat Kai Kara-France, and then he faces Moreno and gets his ass whooped by Brandon Moreno. So I think they're in a similar position where they need to kind of fight down. 2 guys who are kind of on the come up, coming off losses. Taira, Albazi. I think Taira takes this one and beats Albazi because I think Albazi is massively overrated. And then we can start seeing Taira against these guys in the top 5 of the flyweight division. So Tatsuro Taira, Amir Albazi would be the fight I make next for flyweight. And then for the heavyweight division, now I've only got 3 fights at heavyweight because obviously the title picture is so small in this division. There's only a few fights you can make. First one, John Jones versus, oh, you're not going to believe this one, Tom Aspinall. Bet you didn't see that one coming. Yeah, this is the fight to make. I'm not going to say the fight, just... I've talked about this fight too many damn times on this channel that I can't be bothered talking about it again. It needs to happen. It's way past its due date. It needs to happen. John Jones needs to be stripped for the belt, and Tom Aspinall can go and face another contender. Or you simply book the fight, hopefully for UFC 317, or at least at latest UFC 318. John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, the fight the world wants to see. And then for a title eliminator, Ciryl Gane. Now, he doesn't deserve a title fight either. I know he's on a 2-fight winning streak, but Spivak and a robbery win over Alexander Volkov doesn't give you a title fight. He should be taking on Jailton Almeida next for the title eliminator in the heavyweight division. This is a really good matchup, I feel like, because we've got Ciryl Gane, who's on a winning streak and is obviously a top guy in this division, but he just robbed Alexander Volkov. There's no way he won that fight, so I still think he's got an extra fight to win. And Jailton Almeida, I know he had that one boring performance against Derek Lewis, but he's been on the rise, finishing everybody. He's looked amazing in every single one of his fights. I know he lost to Blades, but he's now on a 2-fight winning streak since then. And one thing I respect about Jailton Almeida is he will genuinely fight anyone. He's called everybody out on Twitter. Ciryl Gane, Volkov, Aspinall. He's called a lot of them out. The best striker versus the best grappler in the heavyweight division. Two of the best contenders and up and runners in this division. Gane, Almeida for a title eliminator. The winner can fight the winner of Jones and Aspinall. Maybe not Jones because he's probably going to retire. But if Aspinall beats Jones or he's the champion, you do the winner of Gane and Almeida versus Aspinall next as a clear-cut contender. It's the obvious fight to make. And if Ciryl Gane wants to reject Jailton Almeida, then get out the top 5. Do Jailton Almeida versus Volkov instead for the same implication. So Gane, Almeida for the title eliminator. And then for Alexander Volkov, was riding a 4-fight winning streak, got robbed by Ciryl Gane, but I think he's still only like 1 fight away from a title fight because of the fact that he got robbed against Gane. You can't put him in the title picture immediately, but I think he should take on the winner of Curtis Blades and Rizvan Kuniev. Now, obviously, Volkov was riding a winning streak and just got robbed against Ciryl Gane, and I hope he does get a top 5 fight like a Blades versus Kuniev. And we've obviously got Blades versus Kuniev, which has been rescheduled like 3 or 4 different times, taking place in a fight night. I think it's a fight night main event later this year in the Apex. So I think the winner of Blades and Kuniev should take on Volkov. If Curtis Blades wins, he's in a similar situation to Volkov where he's not necessarily earning a title fight, but he's still in the mix, and this could be a good rematch where they can test each other. And if Rizvan Kuniev can beat Curtis Blades, he's now in the top 5. He's gone from being unranked to top 5 in the heavyweight division, and his final hurdle would be Alexander Volkov. So Volkov versus the winner of Blades and Kuniev, winner gets a title fight. But that would be me matchmaking the title picture in every UFC weight class. Let me know your thoughts and if you agree or disagree with these fights. Let me know your overall thoughts on them. Thank you for watching.